Hi everybody, welcome back for another painting tutorial. I'm Joni Young and thanks for joining me today for this fun, colorful landscape, beautiful garden, a flowing river with lots of stones and trees, flowers, a sunset and sun rays, all of my favorite things. So I'm going to go over all the materials right now with you. I'll also have a full list of everything I'm using below this video in the description box. So if you want to get a set of the brushes that I'm using, the link is below for that, as well as my YouTube channel, my Patreon. I want to thank all of you Patreon members for supporting my channel and my artwork and tutorials. It's because of you that I'm able to produce all of this content. So love you guys. And if you're not a Patreon member yet, you can check out the link below. There's hundreds of exclusive content and tutorials there for you. So let's go ahead and get started. I hope you guys enjoy the video. Okay, to start off this painting, I'm just going to go over the materials we're using, and I'll have a full list below this video in the description box as well. Let's start off with a canvas size. This is a 16 by 20 stretched canvas. I have the following colors here. Let's start off with the bottom: yellow ochre, burnt sienna, amethyst purple, phthalo blue, aqua green, light blue violet, Mars black, light green, sap green, light olive green, lemon yellow, titanium white, neon rose, red, and orange. The brushes I'm going to be using today are a number 50 filbert brush. I'll be using a few mop brushes, roughly 1 to 2 inches, a 2 rigger liner, a number 3 round brush, a 14 filbert, and a 20 flat. Now if you're interested in purchasing the brushes that I'm using today, I'll have a link below this video where you can go check those out. So let's go ahead and get started with this painting. The very first thing I'm going to do is take my large brush and add a little bit of water to the canvas. This is going to help the canvas take the paint better. Just a little bit of water goes a long way. Be sure to catch any drips. If you add too much water, then your paint is not going to stay on the canvas, and it'll also be transparent. Okay, now that that's done, let's go ahead and take a little bit of light blue violet and a little bit of the aqua green turquoise. Both of those colors I'm just going to add right along the top. I'm going to be a little bit more generous. The next color I'm going to take is a little bit of white and a little bit of the neon rose. I'm going to start adding it right below and around where I left off with the blue and the green. Let's take a little bit more. I'm going to rinse my brush out. I'm going to take one of my mop brushes, it's dry, and what I'm going to do, see all these little lines here that you can see the brush strokes and it's a little harsh looking? We're going to erase those fine lines just by gently brushing over, and I'd like to do this in little circles, so I'll just go a little bit slower here to show you. You're not pushing, you're just barely touching the canvas and just making those fine lines disappear. What a difference, right? Okay, so we'll rinse those brushes out, and I'm gonna continue using the mop brush, and I'm gonna start coming in with a little bit of black first. You don't need a lot. And I'm gonna start to come in and add some trees, light little pushes and taps here. I love using mop brushes, they're so much fun. And I'm going to come in along the other side as well. We're just blocking in the main areas for beautiful big trees and bushes in the background. It's going to help draw our attention to the focal point. Now as I come in closer to the center here, I'm going to start to tap and turn. Each time I tap, I'm lifting up before I tap again. So we get sort of a scoopy shape like this. Now the next color I'm going to take is the Amethyst. I'm going to add a little bit of that beautiful blue violet, and I'm going to start tapping a little bit of that over top of the black. I'm going to gently twirl my brush around in little circles just to make this a little blurrier. We don't want it to disappear into the sky. The sky is going to be really soft. We just want to start to gradually bring the foliage and the foreground into focus. So by softening the midground just slightly, we can do that. Just pick a few little areas and blend them out. Okay, the next step is just taking a little bit more of that purple and the black, and I'm going to go from the side here, pull and sweep in, and then make them shorter and shorter and shorter. We're going to come around and round this out. So it's like the shape of a triangle, and then you're going to round out one side of that triangle. And I'm going to come in on the other side, take a little bit more black, what's left of the purple, and we're going to add another triangle here that's sort of rounded as well, and just block that in. When we break things down into little shapes in our compositions, or no matter what we're painting, could be animals, still life, portraits, it's a really easy way of breaking it down so that it's doable and doesn't seem so intimidating. Just gonna brush out the excess, a little bit left in my brush here, just a little bit more paint, and then let's just come and curve. And I could do this with another brush, but I know I've got a little bit of paint left in here. Okay, so for the next step, I've got another dry and clean mop brush. And I want to mention that normally I would be using the mop brushes from my set of 5 brushes, but I just finished up another video and painting and they still have to dry, so I can't use them for this next step when they're wet and they're out of shape like this. For this next step I need a nice dry one. So once these are dry I can use them again for another painting, but until then I've got some other brushes on hand and we're going to go into the greens now and slowly start to bring up the foliage and bring some color and life to these trees and bushes. So let's start off with some sap green. Remember not to overload your brushes. You just need a little bit. A little goes a long way. And we're going to just start right here where we started off before. We're going to slightly go over the purple. Wherever we have the black, it's now going to be a really deep, dark, shadowy base coat, and it'll help to add dimension and contrast in this painting. So we need all those shadows and midtones and highlights. They all work together. Okay, I'm going to come in on the other side here. I'm just going to switch over to my other hand so that I can reach over here and you guys can see what I'm doing. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing. I think I'm going to have to readjust my easel and canvas in here. There, just have a loose bolt in there somewhere. Okay, let's continue on. I have so much fun creating these little worlds. I like making them up, and kind of reminds me of when I first began seriously painting, and what really motivated me and inspired me were the Thomas Kinkade paintings. They really just touched me. The colors, the subject, all of it just takes me away, and I know many of you out there are lovers of his work too. Unfortunately, he's no longer with us, but he lives on through his exquisite paintings. Okay, I'm going to continue with the sap green. And I'm just gonna come in here and tap, tap, tap for this area here. And I'm gonna pull and sweep here. Maybe we'll have a little grassy area. But yeah, so I don't know if you guys ever lose, I'm sure you do. Once in a while you lose focus, and maybe you run out of ideas or motivation or whatever it is. So whenever I feel like that, I go back to the beginning. I come full circle with what originally made me want to paint seriously and what gave me joy when I painted. Of course, Bob Ross as a kid, if you guys have been following me for a while, you know the story. Bob Ross was painting on TV when I was a little girl. That makes me feel old, but I loved watching him. But later on, in my early 20s, it was Thomas Kinkade that spoke to me in his work. And so whenever I feel like an artist block, I kind of go back to those images, and then I remember my love of color and sort of playing up and dramatizing landscapes. So now that we've added this sap green, I want to come in and add some light olive green. Now my brush is going to start to lose its fluffy shape, but for this step, that's okay. I want it to start looking a little chunkier and have different types of bushes and trees so they don't all look the same. So I'm going to just lightly go over part of the sky. We still have that hint of purple back there, and that's important because if you have a color wheel, you'll know that green and purple, a yellowy green especially, is very complementary with purple. So the colors will really take off and look quite pretty together. Okay, I'm gonna go over to the next side and I'm gonna add a little bit more here. Continuing. Once this is dry, it's going to look a little darker than what you see it as right now. So I will be adding some highlights, and I recommend maybe waiting a little bit till it's all dry. If you're just starting out and you're not sure how much to add, see where it is once it's dry, and then you'll know what to add later. I'm going to take a little bit more of that light olive green, and I'm just going to add some sweeps in here. I don't want these to look like stairs, so I'm going to go over some of those. Just trying to add some highlights and shadows. We can turn our brush kind of straight up and down like this and gently tap or flick a little bit. Let's take a little bit more. And short little flicks like this will look like maybe little bits of moss or little tufts of grass. Add a little bit in here as well. I want to add a little bit of this light green now, and it's just called light green. It's by Holbein. If you guys are ever curious about the brands of paint I'm using, they're either going to be a Liquitex Basics acrylics or Holbein, and you can always, if there's anything you guys want to know about, I'm pretty good at answering comments and questions below, but just don't hesitate to leave a comment or a question or a request if you have them below the videos in the comment section. But I want to use this light green because it's a little bit, it's not as yellow and as warm as the olive green. It's a little bit more cool, so this is going to add a little bit more life and dimension to the painting. Just pulling in a little bit of that. And then a soft little tap here and there. We'll add a little bit in here as well. Let's add a little bit in here. So now we've got some different temperatures of greens. Add a little bit right in here, make this a little bit brighter. Almost making it solid in there. Okay, I'm gonna rinse my brush out now. Now the next brush that I want to use and show you guys how to use is the liner rigger brush. This comes from my set of brushes. It's a number 2. Nice and long brushes like this with a combination of water and paint will really help you be able to paint thin tree trunks and tall grass, anything sort of twisty and viney, or anything you need long lines for, or branches. I've got a whole tutorial where it's just a deep dive into how to use, load, and all the techniques using this brush here. So check out my playlist. If you haven't seen it already, I have a playlist entirely about each and every brush and how to use them. So I'm going to take a little bit of water like this, and I'm going to add some burnt sienna into my amethyst and black here. Make sure you have enough water. I might have to take a little bit more. And we're gonna start, I'm gonna have the handle pointing up, and I'm just gonna start, I'm gonna twist the brush between my fingers while I'm moving around with it. I'm gonna make my branch or main part of the tree trunk here a little thicker towards the base, and then thin out these branches. A little shake too. You can twist and roll and add a little shake. All of those things will really help you with your tree trunks. Apologize if you guys are hearing my heater. If you hear a little noise in the background, I turned my fireplace on. I can't believe it. Usually it's really warm here, especially on the island, but it's been quite chilly lately. We've been getting a lot of rain, which I guess is a good thing because there's always that threat and scare of wildfires. So we definitely need the rain, but it's a little chilly in here. But as it warms up, I'll shut it off. I've had a few people complain, so I do apologize if you're watching this for relaxation and you're distracted by that. Okay, so just adding a little bit of burnt sienna now without any water. I'm just gonna randomly pick a few areas and just add a little bit of burnt sienna, then a teeny tiny bit of yellow ochre. Again, you don't need to do this on every single branch or tree trunk. Okay, I'll rinse my brush out now. And I'm gonna go over to another mop brush. This one's still a little bit wet, but it's a nice shape for what I need to use it for next. And I really want to add a little bit of lighter leaves, maybe like a dogwood tree that has the big white flowers on it. I love those trees. So I'm just going to take a little bit of white. I'm going to add a little bit of yellow because I want it to be tinted and not just straight white. Because once I do this, I'm going to completely dry this off, and I'm going to be showing you guys how you can make this look misty and foggy and set it back in the distance even farther. And it just gives so much mood to a painting. It's one of my favorite things to do in landscapes. So I'm going to start by just adding a little bit on an angle like this and have it kind of, again, come in with a scoopy shape that we have. Just a little bit. And then maybe I'll add a little bit, let's go ahead and do that. Add just a tiny bit of orange in there, a little bit more white. These colors are so concentrated, you don't need a lot. A little goes a long way. I'm going to come in here on an angle. Now, if you don't have a mop brush that is kind of doing this, you can always, I love showing my students this, you can just kind of pinch like this. When you pinch it, you're making it narrower, but it's still going to be kind of like a stipple. You can also use a fan brush or a filbert brush, so there's lots of options. I'm going to take a little bit more of the orange now. Mix that gently with some white. And I'm going to start adding a little bit more in here. Take a little bit more. Kind of just gently push flat like that to get that flattish shape. That's what I like about these brushes. You can really kind of control the shapes of them. They're a nice hair, not too stiff, right? So that you can make them do what you want to do. Let's take a little bit, dip into a little bit of this neon red with the orange and the white. And we can come in and add a little bit more saturation here. A little bit of red, maybe a little bit of this rose. That makes a really pretty color. And we'll just continue tapping along here. I'm going to take a little bit of white now, mix those up again, the red and the rose, and I'm going to add a little bit here, a little bit here. I'm holding the brush a little differently now so I can make just little mounds of flower bushes. And then with a little bit of paint left in here, I'm going to barely touch the canvas and pull a little bit of this in. To the sky and partially over those branches there. Let's even get a little bit in here. Okay, I'm gonna rinse my brush out. It's all clean, it's just a little bit wet. I'm just gonna take a little bit of white. Let's even take a little bit of yellow. So wet mop brush, not dripping though, and a little bit of white and yellow. So add a little bit of this in here, and it'll kind of layer over the blue and that turquoise to make an even lighter turquoise. Give us a really beautiful sky, and then I'll bring the rest down here. Start that hazy look, start to build up that soft glow back here. Okay, rinsing my brush out again. And I go back over to my rigger brush, take some more of that yellow and white, and add a few little, this technique I'm using right now is the same one I used to show you how to paint the branches. I'm gonna use a little bit of water. I don't want to make these disappear, so if I add too much water, that's gonna happen. All I'm doing here is just adding a little bit of glow to the sky. I'm doing this just before I dry this off, and we come in and soften all of that in the background. Don't forget to leave a comment below if you guys are enjoying this type of content. And I'd love to hear from you. Thank you to all my Patreon members for making these videos possible. I'm gonna wiggle down here a little bit. Okay. Before I dry everything off, I'm gonna take my filbert brush. This is number 14. If you're just tuning in now, I've got a whole supplies list below this video. Take a little bit of this lemon yellow, and I'm going to gently brush over that light green. You can even take a little bit of each, make a really pretty summery green shade. Add a few lines in here just to create some shadows and light. That's all we're trying to do. Ooh, very loud plane above, sorry. And you can scatter this over the little tufts of grass that we added before. A little bit more of this bright, bright yellow. And just choose a few spots to add it to for some bright green leaves. It makes a great filter, these luminous neon paints, because they're transparent. So when your first layer is dry, you can go over and experiment and have fun. There's so much that you can do with transparent paints, especially these bright ones. I just love them. Time to dry this all off, and then the next step is showing you guys how we're going to make this all foggy and misty looking and set it back in the background. I'm so excited to show you guys how to soften this all. I'm just going to use, and you can use any brush you feel comfortable with, but I'm going to use my large filbert brush. You need it to be a little bit damp, so what you want to do is just wash the brush out or dip it in the water and then get the excess, dry the excess off with a towel or a rag. So I think this one is still just a little bit too wet, so I'm just gonna get that excess bit of water out of there. And then we're simply gonna take a little bit of white, and you can tint your white if you want. I think there's a, yeah, there's a little bit of yellow in there, but I'm mostly just using some white. And I'm gonna start down here in this spot. I think I'll have a little sun. It looks like a sunset, right? So I'm gonna have the sun, the brightest spot right here. And then I'm gonna crisscross or figure eight to soften everything. I'm going to add a little bit of extra white and just a tiny bit yellow in here for this spot. And then work my way out, but I'm not going to go all the way. I won't go completely all the way to either side. Okay, so you can see how soft and delicate that looks. So the next thing I'm going to do is come in here and add, I think I want this to be a flowing creek or riverbed, and I want to add a little bit of phthalo blue. light blue violet. Let's take a little bit more amethyst. There we go. The end of it was a little clogged up and dried out. I notice that happens even with all tubes, even if they're closed, if they just get a littlest bit of air in there, that can happen. Okay, so I've got, again, light blue violet, phthalo blue, and amethyst. And what I'm going to do is start from here, holding my brush, kind of flat across here, and I'm going to wiggle, slightly go over the grassy areas. I'm going to go on an angle like this now for any rocks that are kind of along the side. It'll give us a little bit more of a feel that there's a bank. The brush is quite dry now with not much paint left, but I'm just going to dry brush some of that out. I'm going to gently bring some of this up here into the middle, and then that can be the beginning stages of a waterfall in the distance. Okay, and I'm going to continue along, going over part of the grass. All these wiggles and kind of squiggles are going to be the darker parts of the water. The white's going to be the brightest, of course, and we're going to have some rocks in here as well. So I'll add just a few with a little bit more paint, a few little blobs here. I always say if you want to paint rocks, make lopsided, like half circles or half ovals. It's always a safe bet. And then I'm going to take a little bit of black without washing my brush off. Just using the corner of the brush like this. Now you can use a smaller brush for this part, of course. It's just that I've got a little bit of this brush is dirty already, and I've got some of those colors, the purple and the blue in there, and that helps to come out and leave these rocks not so boring and flat black looking. It adds just a little bit of something to them. Okay, so time to rinse this brush out now. Okay, who's ready to paint a little waterfall? I'm going to use this tiny number 3 round brush. You guys can see that. I'm going to take a little bit of white, not totally mix that with the blue and the purple. Just kind of have it a little marbled looking. And I'm going to just place my pinky here, placing a finger, make sure that the paint underneath is dry. This will help steady your hand. And I'm just going to come over top of part of that blue and purple base coat and wiggle a little bit like that. Then straight white. Follow that right in the middle. Now sometimes when I paint waterfalls like this, that and to some people, I get this comment quite a bit, and they say, those waterfalls just coming from the sky, that doesn't make sense. They're coming from another level way back here. So these were trees before. Now that we set this waterfall in here, we know that there's some more land and another level that goes higher ground up here. And we're just seeing this side of it where the waterfall is trickling down. Okay, then I'm going to take a little bit of white and we're going to add little dabs, little half circles, and just start coming in and around the blue and the purple. And I've got another brush that's bigger, that's going to work a little better for this part. I'm going to be using my number 20 flat brush for this. I'm going to get this brush a little bit wet, haven't used it yet. I want to loosen those bristles up. Take the white, and with this blue and purple still wet, kind of able to pick up a little bit of that along the way. Even the black. It's actually starting to dry a little. Oh, there's a little area that's still wet. So you can decide how much movement you want to have in your water just by, you know, the brush strokes. So if you have these little gentle little curves like this, it'll look like the water's kind of just going over a rock, and it looks sort of like a little mini waterfall. So that is drying quite quickly. I'm going to take a little bit of my blue purple mixture and bring this around, picking up a little bit of that black here and there on the rocks will give us sort of a smoky color. Just adding a little bit more to the water. I'm having a lot of fun with this painting. I hope you guys are enjoying this one too. Let me know if you are painting along, and go ahead and post and share your paintings you've done with me. If you're active on any social media, I love to see all of your versions of my paintings. Now we do have a Facebook group, but I've recently, well, in the last few months, I guess not so recently, but I've had to kind of cap it and not accept any more members because we have, I think, over 80, wait, how many? I think it's 80,000, but it's a really wonderful group. However, there's been, like, it's a lot to look after for the admins, and we get a lot of spam, and I just decided that instead of having it completely crazy with, you know, too many members, that we would just leave it at a nice number. But if you really want to join the group, just send me a message, and just to kind of prove that you're not a bot. Okay, so I think this is shaping up really nicely. I want to add a little bit more to the rocks. I'm going to switch over to my filbert because the rocks, I want them to be a little softer. I'm going to use the round shape on the bottom to help me do that. I'm going to take a little bit of black, purple, and white and just sort of sweep over part of the rocks. So you're going to leave the bottom of them darkest. Now you can use a combination of, you know, use how much blue you want, purple, black, or white. It's up to you. But make sure you get a little bit of white in there so that they show up. I'm layering to make it look like there's more rocks and rocks behind rocks. So just so that it gives it a little bit more of an interesting look. I love adding rocks to flowing creeks and rivers. Really adds a lot of depth. Maybe I'll add just one more right there. Take a little bit of white, blend that in there. Okay, with a clean brush, I'm going to take a little bit of white, yellow, and this light green. I'm going to add a little bit of moss over some of the rocks, and I'm also going to add a little bit more sunlight hitting these areas. Add a little bit of that yellow right there. Scatter a little bit of this. Again, it's so easy to filter over. I'm taking it over top of the sky a little bit as well because I want it to feel a little bit warmer right there. I'm going to rinse this brush out. I'm just going to take my pinky with a little bit of titanium white and just dab on a little bit of that white. If you want, you can pull some soft sun rays. It's never a bad idea. Just pick up a little bit more white with a tint of yellow. Pull. Okay, I think that's kind of soft and pretty looking. What I want to do is add a little bit of these warm peachy pinky tones to the water, and you'll see what a difference this makes just by adding a little bit. So I've mixed up a little bit of those colors. And I'm just going to lightly wiggle with the end of my brush. Let's mix up a little bit more. Yellow, red, white, a little orange in there is fine. Okay, now let's take a little bit more of the red and the white and just add little, just using the very tip end of the brush, little bits of this color in here. It'll almost make the water look somewhat iridescent or reflective of the sky. It's just picking up the colors that are up there in the sky. So pretty. I'm going to take a little bit of the aqua green now, and I'm going to add a little bit of phthalo to it, and I'm going to just start to tap some cool shadowed bushes along the side here. Just a little something over here as well. I like the way these colors look together, and I want to feel a little bit of coolness and shadows in this area here. Can add a little something in here as well. There's an old fence, or I don't know. I like just adding, sometimes just adding some brush strokes, not knowing what it is, but it kind of just leaves you to wonder, leaves a little bit of mystery. Okay, so I'm going to take a little bit more phthalo now with the purple. And see how this is kind of, it needs to be flat on the bottom. So I'm going to take a little bit of that off and squiggle and wiggle around here. I'll take a little bit of white in with that. Okay, rinsing my brush out. I'm gonna take clean brush, a little bit of this orange, a little bit of yellow, like beautiful sort of tangerine color. Wipe the excess off so it's more of a dry brush, and we're just going to add a little bit to the sun here. And you can filter over, go over top of some of those bright highlights. A little bit in the water if you want, a little more color. See how much freedom you have with acrylics. I love using it, or using them, I should say. I'm going to add a little bit of moss. I'm going to take the yellow, light olive green, and the light green, olive green, yellow, and a little bit of white. Take a little bit more of each of those. And I'm going to add a little bit of moss over some of these rocks. Don't have to add it to all of them. And then they're going to get smaller back here when all you have to do is just add a little tap, just like you would for some bushes. Take a little bit of sap green. Push and tap. And I've got the other little, just by doing this you make little leaves. Just by pushing just on the side like this. I'm going to start adding some little old stone posts here on either side. I'm not going to paint a bridge. That would be beautiful. However, the last painting tutorial I just did is called Bridge of Hope, and I have a bridge over it. But this time I want to have some old stone lamp posts with little ornate kind of lanterns on the top. So I think that would be really, really pretty. But before I do that, I want to add with my little round brush, my number 3 round brush, a little dab of white. Make this a little bit brighter, and then gently, just these little gentle flicks. So we have that gentle sunlight, and then a little bit of water flowing. Again, some more white. And then dry brush, blend it out, scumble, whatever you want to call it, right at the base of that little waterfall. And then just a little bit more white, a little thicker and heavier. Making it a bit more visible. So soft and some thicker white areas. Brighten up a few of those stones. Okay, for our stone lamp posts, we have to decide where we want them to be. Do you want them to be further in the background or closer in the foreground? Now, I think it would be nice to place them right about here so they're kind of going in the distance, and we still have room to add our little glowing lanterns or little lights on top. So I'm going to use my round brush for this step, and I'm going to start with a little bit of white and some yellow ochre. I'm going to tint my white with that yellow ochre, so we've got this soft creamy color. Yellow ochre is one of the most underused colors. People don't realize what a lovely color it actually makes and adds to a painting. So I want to just come right in here, add a little line on the top. I know I'm going right over my pink bush, but we know it's there. And go right down. You can draw yours out with painter's chalk first if you want, or draw it out with a paintbrush. Okay, so there's one. And then eyeball it over. We'll add a little line right there. Then go inside and add the other one right down here. And we'll add some flowers and stuff at the base or grass just to sort of camouflage. Any little, just to make sure that it looks like it's not just floating there on the rocks. Okay. Now I'm going to take some more white, and I'm going to add that across the top. A little line on the top. I'm going to add a little bit more inside here. Gonna dry these off. Just before I do that, I just want to make sure that this one looks just a little bit wider, so let's just add a teeny tiny bit here. Okay, then I'm going to dry this off, and we'll start coming in with the next step of making it look like it's old stones, and it's super easy. You guys are going to love this trick. Okay, so now that it's all dry, I'm going to take a little bit of black, burnt sienna, yellow ochre, and we'll mix it up with a little bit of that white so it's not too dark. Mix it up with your little round brush. We're going to come right underneath the white line we added on the top. Remember, this line on the top is going to be longer or wider than the base or the rest of it. Then we're going to come in at the bottom here. This is probably going to be covered up anyways with some greenery, but we'll just add it. Okay, I'm going to take a little bit more black, burnt sienna, and I'm going to come on the left side and the right side of each. Make it a little darker right underneath. Just rinse my brush out because the paint's starting to dry inside. Soften that a little bit. It's a little bit of a shadow. Okay, now what we're going to do is just come in and add little blobs, and we're going to leave, you can stagger them or just randomly place them, but we're leaving that light cream color inside or in between so it looks like the mortar. But see how easy that is? So the light base and then just a little staggering. Make them a little rounded. That's going to make them look a little older instead of like bricks. Okay, I'm going to take a little bit extra burnt sienna, a little bit of black, yellow ochre, just make this a little bit darker. I'm going to add a line part way down. And then right here as well. Then I'm going to take some white, a little bit of yellow ochre, and gently add a little dab over top. And with a clean brush, I'm going to take some white, just a little bit, and I'm going to add a little bit inside. You can use a smaller, like a micro mini liner brush if you need to. I just want to make a few of these areas in between the stones show up a little bit more. Okay, so I think I'm ready to start adding the lamp posts, or the lamp shades, the lanterns. And I'm going to start with a little bit of yellow, a little bit of orange and white, and we'll just add a little, sort of a diamond shape. So a little wider on the top, or not a diamond shape, I guess, more like a rounded upside down triangle. I don't know why I said diamond. Okay, and then just add a little extra inside, maybe a little dab of, try it again, a little dab of white. Then I'm going to take a little bit of orange, a little bit of yellow ochre, and I'm just going to catch around the edges, slightly going over where I left off. So we're going to layer over part of that lighter yellow. Okay, now we're going to take some black, and we're going to add a little line for the base. We're going to add a little line on the top for the little cap. And then we'll come in and add a little teeny triangle on top of those. I'm going to add a little dab here. Pull it in and outline it. Use a little bit of water if you need to, just to thin that paint out. That way it'll be less globby. And then we're going to go right down the middle. Add a little dot on the top and another little dot. Okay, let's do this one. Little dot and then a little dot. I'm going to add a little bit of a wider black base, and then I'm going to come down here and gently scumble out the rest of that black. And then see my brush out. I'm going to take another dab of white. I'm going to add it right there and right there, so they look a little brighter. I'm gonna go back over to my filbert brush, and we can take some sap green, a little bit of olive green, light green, all the greens, and just tap in a little bit of grass. Now I'm going to come in with a clean brush, and I'm going to use this beautiful last bit of red and rose. It's starting to dry, but it's nice and thick, and I like it when it's really thick like this. It is starting to dry a little bit though. And what I want to do is add some pretty bright flowers here. Ooh, right next to that lime colored green. Really stands out. We'll add a little bit in here, another little flower bush. Let's just take a little bit of each there. A decent amount. And we can add some in here as well. We've got those green leaves in there, so we've just got to add a few little beautiful flowers in here. Now we can take a little bit of white. A little bit of white mixed in with those will just give us an extra pop once it dries, because they are transparent. There's no white in them to begin with, so they will end up drying a little bit darker than what you see it as right now. Just a little bit here to go along with this one here, and a few more highlights. I'm going to mix in some of this amethyst. With the rose and the red. Actually, make it a little bit more, make it a little bit darker. Add a little something there. Let's take a little bit of phthalo, mix that in. Look at all these different shades we can make by mixing our pinks and reds and blues. Just going to take a little bit of white phthalo and turquoise. We've got a dry mop brush here. I'm going to take some white with that phthalo and a little bit of the turquoise, and we're just going to create a little different texture here by using this little brush. Gentle little taps. We can add little hints of it in here. Maybe a little bluish tinge up here. This is part of the painting that is really important because adding a little bit here and there when you think you're just about done really adds the finishing touches. Look at all those colors. It's so much fun. I'm just going to take a little bit of that off there. Now, I like to use a little short detail brush or liner brush and a little bit of water to sign my painting. Where I've got a darker area here, I'll use a little bit of white and yellow. And I'm just going to sign my name right here, bottom left corner. You don't want your signature to be too big, as it'll take away from the painting. And you could have a date on there. I just like to do a little line and the year. And it's 2024. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed watching this tutorial today and learning to paint along with me. Thanks so much for joining me, and I'll see you all very soon in my next video. Bye!